you're really ill, now that you stepped into my enemy, my night is complete. Now that you're finally here, and a part of it, you like your life, the guardian of my sleep. Cause there is in my heart some kind of charge. I must not see, my dear. Every time I see you be my dear, I must not see, my dear. Every time I see you be my dear Lucy.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, good evening and good afternoon, and welcome to the late one with yourself, with myself, SYLBOURNE SHOW, and also welcome to the show where we're going to be talking about some of the top news of this week. And I've got a array of guests, which is that we have here tonight, which is Keima, Keisha, and David. They're here, but I've kept them waiting for a bit while we actually get ready for the day and also for tonight. There's so many different things which is happening in the news, and I felt that it was best that we actually dissect some of them. You may have seen Michael Holden. We're going to touch on that. You may have seen also the issues about the Chancellor giving away money. People are saying, hey, is this a socialist government or what? We're talking about also Bianca, whereby we've seen the police actually apologize. And at the same time, you're seeing the police running away from persons all over, recently with different illegal raves and all those sort of things. Crime, jobs. And therefore, ladies and gentlemen, and most importantly, we're going to be touching base with COVID. So therefore, without further ado, 1, 2, 3, I will release the gang. And this is the gang of 4. Let me see if I can hear everybody. Keima.
Hello, SYLBOURNE.
Fantastic. Keisha.
Hi.
Hi. And David. Now, David, I can't hear no sound from David. Where is David? Okay. David, what I'm going to ask you to do is come out and come back in, and maybe we'll be able to get that your audio or so. You can hear me. I think you can hear me. Can you hear me? Okay, right. So David is gonna come back. So right, good. Welcome again. So Keisha, how was your week?
It's been a great week, and there's a lot happening in this week. It's just so much going on. And so much to take in, but you know, these are the times we're living in. We just have to keep progressing. Yeah.
Keisha.
Well, Keima, SYLBOURNE. We're gonna start again this week, right? But I think it's been a great week. It was a very, very good week for the government as well. We've opened up a lot of shops now, so we've had that big sale. A lot of stores was given 70% discount the last couple of days. And so we're slowly beginning to see the recovery from COVID. So it's been a very exciting week in some ways. We're beginning to see the light. So it's been very positive.
Okay. And we're seeing a flashing light which is coming in, and it is flashing, and there it is. David.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Good, man. I heard it all the while, David, but I was just testing you, man.
Okay. You know what it was, SYLBOURNE? I was watching those dolphins at the start, and I was wondering which of the dolphins I could be, the one in the first place or the last place. Quite obviously, I was the last dolphin.
Okay, right.
So I had to, I was swimming underwater. But anyway, so sorry about that. I don't know what happened with this volume.
That's good. And David, how's your week this week so far?
The week's been perfect. Work's picking up steadily. Looking after my patients. Respecting our, obviously our distancing rules there as well, wearing our face masks in the hospitals. Everything's good. Yeah. And obviously we've got to catch up on COVID, but yeah.
Well, it's good that you mentioned about COVID, because that's the first thing that we're going to look at in regards to COVID. And David, how's your week this week so far? Okay, somebody's been playing something, trying to hear themselves. At least the good thing about that is when I hear people doing that, sometimes I say, well, at least you can hear yourself twice. Some people can't hear,
Forgive me, SYLBOURNE. I'm trying to share I'm okay.
Okay. Well. While David is talking, we can do that. So I'll just put you on mute briefly as well. David, so tell us about COVID, the update.
Yeah. So obviously, when we touched base last week, there was the sort of local lockdowns that were taking place in regards to Leicester. And the good news coming out of Public Health England is that the number of cases across England are reducing. So they're falling quite nicely. Probably not as fast as we'd like them to fall. Obviously, we want a caseload of 0. We want 0 admissions. We want 0 deaths in regards to COVID. But they are falling across England. The number of cases per 100,000 have fallen from 140 to 120 per 100,000 in Leicester.
Yeah.
So again, moving in the right direction, and I think that obviously bodes well for the continued opening up of social restrictions, and also businesses that are opening up. We've gone down from the 2 meter rule to the 1 meter plus rule, and it's always a positive step when we can see that the numbers are still going in the direction that we want. Obviously, at the start of the week, which we'll touch on a little bit later, Boris Johnson had a little bit of a fiasco that created a bit of a storm in regards to his comments in regards to care homes, and the responsibility of the number of persons who have unfortunately passed in care homes, which has been highlighted. Up to 20,000 people have died in care homes. Obviously, he made a statement on that. We'll hear that statement a little bit later. But the confusion that followed that statement, I think, was cause for concern, really. And obviously, as the week has progressed, we've got more information about how persons will be supported further down the line. So we had the Chancellor's statement, and again, we'll explore those issues regarding the Chancellor's statement. I think one of the things that stood out for me was the stamp duty reduction. So trying to kickstart the housing market. And again, that's fruit for thought in terms of how we best navigate that. But we've not got to forget about those persons who are obviously in the rental market. And I think that's a big thing that we're focusing on, people moving from house to house. But what about those people who are renting? How we support those renters who may not want to go into the housing market, or who may want to get into the housing market? How best to support them? I think we've probably missed a trick there. And then the last thing I wanted to just touch on in regards to COVID is in relation really to the Chancellor's thought processes in regards to food. So trying to get people out there on the Mondays to Wednesdays now, and halving that food bill by 50%. And there's an extension from that. It fits in with the health associated thing, health association with that. So the unhealthy eating habits that we may well be encouraging with that, and the unfortunate fact that our gyms are not open just yet. But we've got news today that hopefully within the next few weeks that gyms will be open. The Chancellor himself probably doesn't need to get into the gym. He's quite a slender person, but there are people out there like myself who need to get to the gym, need to get back into habits rather than running up and down the road panting and breathing on other individuals. So I need to get to the gym. That's the main thing.
Well, he has been serving food in Wagamama.
He's been serving food in Wagamama's. Well, Wagamama's isn't too bad, I guess, in terms of the calorific content. But in all seriousness, I think that this does raise a serious concern about the food industry. Obviously, we need to get people back into restaurants, but I just have a little bit of a concern about the type of food that we're eating, and what that's saying. Takeout, fast food, but not being able to balance that with sort of healthy activities outside of being able to exercise in a park. We need to get back and open the gyms, open the swimming pools, etc., in a safe manner. And again, if reports are to be proven true, then we would hope that in the next 2 weeks or so that the gyms should be opening shortly. So I think that's probably just a synopsis of what's been going on. We can deep dive into those topics now, really.
Keima, what's your take about COVID at this time? Because at the same time, I'm hearing while there's an upbeat nature, there's also people having reservations at the same time. Keima, what's your thoughts on COVID and where it's at now, and from your perspective?
Yeah, I think the government is trying to get people back to work and get back out to the public, restaurants, and it's important for the economy that the government put some incentives in place to do that. But you're right. One of the things I think people are concerned about is their safety. And, I know David mentioned about the rates are going down, but then you still hear individuals. I think the other day you have over 100 and odd people passed away still as a result of COVID. So still, people are still very much concerned about their safety and going out there. And I know the government is reiterating that people, if they're going to use public transport, that you use the mask, and giving the onus on businesses as well when people are coming back to work to make sure they've got those measures are in place. But you still hear individuals that are saying that some employers aren't adhering to some of the safety measures. And so there's a lot of concerns about that. Yeah. And also you hear this week as well where the government mentioned about companies who have initiatives in place where you get tested for COVID, that it could be seen as a benefit in kind as well. So there's a lot of areas as well that still needs to be explored, and people have a lot of reservations about getting out there. I mean, the retailers are doing a lot of things. I mean, this week you've had over 70% in some areas in terms of sales. And some companies some retailers are doing very well, but some retailers aren't, because of course the dynamic of shopping has changed. People still have reservations about going back to the stores as well. Yeah. People are more comfortable now, or probably more used to shopping online. So all of that has changed, and there's you're going to take some time for people to actually fully understand and get to grasp of what to do and how soon to get out there. Yeah, and Keisha, I got it right. Wow, Keisha, can you hear me? Mm-hmm. Okay, good.
Yes, I can hear you.
Strike not out.
Right.
Oh, this time, SYLBOURNE. This time.
So you're on COVID as to the perspective as to how you are seeing things faring, because everybody, individuals are all, as Boris Johnson say, common sense. People are also thinking for themselves at the same time. Should I send my children to school? Whatever, should they go out? Should they actually go out Monday to Wednesday and have dinner? Hang on a second. Social distancing. Man, I'd rather stay safe, man. Let me just keep being home. What's your take on things, Keisha?
So, in an ideal world, I think that, we should be looking to eradicate the virus completely before we can move on to the next phase. But obviously that is not happening. That's not possible. And so the government has taken the stance that what they need to do is to manage the risk whilst opening up or easing the lockdown. And I think it's a reasonable approach. But we have to be very mindful of the implication that could have as a result of that decision. Yes. So although I understand that we need to actually balance the risk that's actually now associated with that decision, we need to be aware of that this can actually create a second wave or cause the number of people with the virus to increase. And so it's a risky position that they have taken. But I suppose when you weigh it all up, this has to be the best approach. But obviously, we as a people, there's an onus on us as individuals to safeguard or to take certain degree of safety measures, which means that clearly, taking when we're going out, wearing a face mask, or if we're within someone around somebody who actually may have the virus, using the PPE, observing the government measures regarding that. So yes, we still have to. The onus is on us now as individuals to get back out there and get to work, but also ensure that we are very much compliant with the requirement that the government has put in place. David,
these reservations, of course, which is out there by persons in regards to easing of the lockdown, social distancing. One of the things we'll talk about later in regards to the eat and the thing that the government
eat out to help out.
Eat out, help out.
You can tell I'm very keen on that sale.
Yeah, it is. What they're saying is that it is non-alcohol. And why I've raised that point about non-alcohol drinkers, because if they do that, then people are going to get drunk. And recently on Saturday, July the 4th, the police said it's difficult for social distancing for drunk persons. and a pub or two actually close. You know,
Yeah.
what's your take on that there?
Yeah. So I mean, I think I share Keisha's reservations regards to the worries and anxieties that people will have. We have come from a period of time where we've had to had not so much enforced, but we've been asked to stay at home.
Yes.
For the good of the nation. We've complied with that, largely speaking, for a good number of weeks, and to change people's psyche and mindset from that to now socializing, going out to pubs and restaurants and being in close quarters with others is a very difficult dynamic for people to accept, especially if the fear of catching the coronavirus is obviously a first and foremost thought. Now, what I would say is that being sensible about things, being aware of your surroundings, and wearing appropriate sort of face coverings is going to be the best thing for you currently. Our understanding of this virus is perfectly is perfectly expanding. The knowledge base is expanding, and so I share people's reservations. But I think that we've got good information now in regards to how best to handle this particular situation. And the recommendations that have been in place to wear face masks on public transport, etc., to respect a 1 meter plus rule. A degree of common sense has to come into this as well. And we have common sense. We just need to reignite that drive and passion to explore it. And I think that comes with time, but we'll all obviously come to a point in time where we can work together responsibly. So it's going to take a time, and it's not going to be for all. People will be able to move at different paces with this. Rather than a government-wide lockdown, which everybody has to obey, the unlock will be a lot slower. A bit like the reduction in death rate that's occurred. You look at that graph. You want it to be zero. We want zero. We want everybody to be out there socializing, but we need to have it in a safe manner. My thoughts on the food item, for example, again, is we need to make sure that I think there should have been some kind of thought on the types of food that would get this 50% reduction, because I think there was one thing that I heard, and which was the weight increase because of lockdown. The weight gain that we've had because we've stayed indoors, for example. Yeah, you're buttoning up there, SYLBOURNE. I like it. The cake, the sweet tooth, all of that jazz. We've been cooking more at home. There's a propensity for people to have gained weight during that period of time. Healthy eating is key and essential. Getting out there and exercising is key and essential to sort of obviously fight off the virus as well.
Yeah. Which side there's children at? Which side is it?
Here from my point. Hold on.
That's all right. I can just mute you in the time, if anything. That's all right. Until you're ready. Oh, who's it? Whose side is it? Whose side is it?
I think it's over this way.
Is
Over
yours?
this way.
No. Is it from Keisha's side or Keima's side?
Keisha's.
Okay, that's no problem. That's cool. That's cool.
Okay. Should I go?
No. You stay where you are. Stay where you are. Yeah. So therefore, Richard Quest from CNN recently put out a statement saying that he's finding himself having these same symptoms coming back and forth, David, and he's sort of concerned. So he's going up and down. So it's like he's living with this COVID thing. I don't know if everybody is trying to get to understand this. Is there any more breakthrough understanding of COVID? It doesn't reside with us. Live with us now.
Yeah, that's a really difficult question. I will just point out one thing that Keima said earlier, which was the benefits in kind issue. I think it's something that the HMRC had put forward as an issue or concern. I think they're trying to roll that back at present, and that was up until Tuesday that I heard that through the press. And the reason I mention that is, somebody who is continually having symptoms may think, oh, I need to have continuous tests. And that may well be resonating with them. Now, with this particular case that you're talking about, in terms of our understanding of COVID, we know it can have very mild effects to being asymptomatic in certain individuals, to actually having obviously prolonged issues or concerns, people feeling quite tired, for a prolonged period of time, not being able to breathe as well as effectively as they used to, so their exercise endurance isn't as great. There is a multitude of symptoms that have been associated with COVID. Obviously, there are core symptoms of a prolonged cough, a continuous cough,
Yes.
altered smell, etc. That we're all aware of in terms of symptoms to seek the testing via direct route. But the prolonged effect, I think, is very individualistic. Very individualistic indeed. I remember a good proportion of patients that are people that actually acquire may well be asymptomatic themselves. So I think it's all individualistic, and people will be able to present with symptoms that may well seem a bit off the cusp. But the tiredness issue, and the good days and bad days that some people sort of associate with having had the disease itself is not uncommon.
And that leads us now to the government actually getting us out of the wall, easing the lockdown, throwing money at different persons now. The Chancellor now is actually saying, hey guys, we have got to move on. Right, Keisha? We've got to move on.
That's what the government is saying. Your mate Rishi, that's what he said today. Well, from the outset, I believe I would be the dissenting voice here, because I do have some questions around your mate's budget.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, let me. The government of recent days, which is the Chancellor Rishi Sunak, my mate, has delivered his summer economic plan to help the UK economy recover from the impact of coronavirus pandemic. Include plan to protect jobs, help younger workers, encourage spending with measures such as VAT cut, leisure activities, and restaurant voucher scheme. Now, one of the first one which he has, and let's throw this out, and for people to also think, job retention bonus to encourage firms to retain furlough staff, a one-off 1,000 payment to employers for every furlough employee retained to the end of January 21. Should it be to the employers, or should it be to the employers, or should it be to the employees?
Okay, so that's just one of the items or subject matter.
Yes.
There, okay. But if you look closely at the budget, you got to look at the fine print. So you will notice that these are targeted to entrepreneurs, business owners, employers, landlords. So by noting those type of people, those are specific class.
Okay,
we missed her.
Yeah, Keima, yeah, she's gonna come back. It's a specific class, yes. What's your take on that? While Keisha comes back.
Should I go?
Yeah, please.
Yeah.
Right. So I think, from my point of view, obviously, I think it's very good where the government has decided, they're going to give employers £1,000 bonus to retain individuals. I mean, I think you've got to think about the budget as a whole, and the main idea for the budget. It's all about jobs. It's all about retaining jobs. We know at the moment, in Europe, we've had one of the highest unemployment as a result of COVID. So the government had to do something very robust, very innovative, something very, very new. And they've came up with the furlough scheme, and they've came up with this additional mini budget as well to add on to that. Now that is about over 160 billion the government is pumping into trying to retain jobs. We see how difficult that is for the government to do, and they're trying to do something that is new and innovative. For me, I think the initiative is helpful, but of course, it doesn't necessarily mean we're going to retain a lot of jobs. We already heard this week as well that we only have over 60,000 jobs it's still going to go as a result of that. So maybe the initiative didn't come in early enough for some employers to hold back staff. But it's an initiative to try and keep jobs. I mean, there is also, for me, which is very mindful and very thoughtful, I think the Chancellor has done, is to really target this budget to a specific group of people. And I'm very pleased that he's mentioned young people who are just leaving university, people who are just leaving colleges and school, who are trying to get their first time into a job. It's also given an incentive to employers to recruit these individuals, because you and I both know that it's how hard it is when you leave school to try and get into employment, even if it's a work placement. And employers now would going to be encouraged to take individuals on traineeship, even work experience, and be rewarded for that. And obviously, not just young people, but also individuals who needs to retrain. So if you're over 25 as well, you can still get onto the apprenticeship scheme. So it's very targeted to individuals who really the government is trying to get back to work, get some training behind it, but also an incentive as well for businesses to say, okay, we know it's really difficult. Wait, it's a long-term plan. You will get a bonus at the end of it if you maintain and keep staff. So I think it's a really brave, bold budget from the Chancellor.
Okay.
But it's certainly not brave.
Keisha, can I just say to you, Keisha, you gotta be careful because they're watching you, and maybe Rishi is gonna kick you out again. No, carry on, please. Sorry.
Well, still, in the interest of diversity of thought, I have to take my seat here. So
yes,
allow me.
Go for it.
Right. So where was I? So as you can see, as I set out, these are particular class of people that have been specifically targeted by the government. Okay. So they haven't. Bear in mind, and let me take you back to where we came from. We as a people, okay, we suffered through this pandemic. A lot of people are struggling financially, okay? And the government, this wasn't a time for the government to reflect on that. The fact that there are people who didn't qualify for the fulfil scheme, okay? At the moment, what you find, there's a lot of people out of work and are losing their job as we speak at this moment, okay? Where is that factored into this budget? Right? There's a group of people who in this country are vulnerable and are marginalized, and that haven't been captured within this budget. There's only a small group of people. There's only a few bearing in mind people that have been targeted, and these are already middle class group of people, successful people. I mean, when you look at the stamp duty, who are exactly this cancellation of the stamp duty effective from today or yesterday to the 31st. Who's that targeted for? Let's think about it. It can't be for first-time buyers, because first-time buyers actually just need assistance with a deposit. Thank you very much, Rishi. But you seem to forget that, okay? So I'm not quite sure who's that targeted to, right? Eat out. I mean, still, this is your favorite. Eat out to help out. Who are we helping now? Who are we helping now? Okay. Because that money, as far as I'm concerned, still should be going directly into the pockets of those people who have suffered during this crisis. Okay, a direct payment, because that also contributes to stimulating the economy. Because Richie, your friend, all he wants to do is stimulate the economy. Why isn't he trusting individual people in this country to go out and buy household items that they've been deprived from buying or purchasing over for these past few months?
One of the thinkings that people are having is that just before he gave the announcement with his raft of measures, he also gave 1 billion to the arts. Okay, so I'm of the impression and of the view that this is a phased process, because people are saying, where is all the money coming from? I'm going to put on to David to a point, because it seems to me that there is a sort of kick-starting the economy, because they cannot touch everybody at the same time. He also made it clear that people are going to be affected, that we won't be able to save certain jobs. So therefore, the thinking that I am thinking, my mate didn't tell me anything.
You sure, Tobo? You sure? I heard you went to Nando's with this man. It's his favorite meal.
Yeah. So therefore, it was a way of actually saying, hey, let us actually contribute to our job. Instead of giving people money like young people or so, apprenticeship, giving them, because there's a raft of different things. So, but I understand what you're saying. That is not something which is just you saying it. A lot of people are saying, even Dion is saying, I agree, I've not been thought out properly. But David,
absolutely.
Yeah, David, let me hear your thoughts on this.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've stolen a little bit of my thunder there. So,
I'm so sorry.
It's okay. No, it's okay. So, but I like the passion. I think I like the passion. And I do think that if you look at the way that the government has given us little tiny tidbits at each juncture during the course of this pandemic, I'm not saying that it's staged. I'm not saying that at all. But what I'm saying is that each and every time we've given a little bit of information here and there, scattered, and I think this is a stepwise phased process. I don't think the government, the Chancellor, can give rise to sort of showing his whole hand at this moment in time, and has been really selective in that regard. I do think that he is aware and has some sort of plan in effect for people who subsequently today we've heard today, big number of people losing jobs from big sectors in the UK, and I think that those people will be looked after in some way, shape or form. But and I know that needs to occur sooner rather than later. But I do think that will occur in a staged process. What he's tried to do, whether rightly or effectively, is deal with select persons to try and get things kick-started. And I think that this whole COVID crisis obviously affects the world over. But it's very difficult, I think, to help everybody in this regard at this moment in time, because you need to see the cause and effect. The cause and effect of displaying a certain way to kickstart an economy in unprecedented times, to see what happens and then react on that somewhat. It's great to have plans to look after everybody, but I think that's the tricky thing. But I did, and akin to your point, I said earlier that in terms of the housing market, yes, it's great that I think that you've got the stamp duty, because it will help even first-time buyers who are going on and not having to pay that stamp duty. Now they can look after other affairs in their home, they can save that money or whatever. But the thing that's missing for me is the rental market and the people who are renting, etc., etc. But we'll all have our gripes with the way that things are conducted. But this, make no bones about it, this is the most crazy time for finances in this particular country. All of the savings that we've had during the physical time of 10 years, all that banking and all that banking of money and all that, the security of trying to tax or save and etc., which I wasn't particularly happy with, but it happened over that 10 years, is now gone in 2 months. So that's the issue at hand. But I do think that this is a phased procedure, as SYLBOURNE said. I think there's plans in effect. We want those plans now, completely get you, but I think that's what's going to happen. That's my prediction.
Well,
and Rishi's not my mate, by the way.
The reason why I went like this is because I realized there's some competition going on. There's a Team Keisha. Apparently, going on here. So David, I don't know where
I'm Team Keisha, man. I'm Team Keisha.
I'm Team Keisha. So we're back to Nick Clegg and David Cameron. I agree with Nick.
There you go. There you go. I agree.
Keisha, you're saying.
Still, and that is why I struggle with what I'm hearing at the moment about this being a very socialist policy or socialist budget. Because if it's a socialist budget, surely it should be targeted to everybody.
Yes.
Okay. Every single person, including those who are vulnerable and marginalized in this country, those who have suffered and been struggling through this pandemic. And those group of people have been reflected, as far as I'm concerned, or being considered within this budget. So I don't think it's a socialist policy. I do not believe it. I don't believe it's compassionate conservatism. SYLBOURNE, what I call it, this is a conservative policy. Okay, it's nothing but a conservative policy.
Can I just share a simple point? It is a conservative government. So automatically, without default. I'm just sort of sharing that because maybe it's something lost there. I'm just sort of confirming.
No, but I think because it appears from the outset that it's socialism, or it's a socialist policy, and you hear I'm hearing on the radio and people are commenting that Rishi has gone so far, in becoming almost socialist in his approach. And when you look at the detail, you realize if it's about socialism, everybody should be benefiting.
All right,
everybody should be benefiting somehow, and everybody aren't. There are people right now who are struggling financially, and if the government can trust business owners they can trust individuals.
Okay,
we can help boost the economy as well. Give us that money.
Okay, can I just ask you the question? So you prefer the government hand the money to individuals? Is that what you're saying?
Well, Phil.
Yes.
I am not disputing the fact that he went this route, okay? But what I'm trying to say to you, yes, as well as. So I'm very much happy for him to invest in business and entrepreneurs. That is very much conservatism. But also, if you're going to take the socialism route, you have to support those who cannot help themselves at this time.
Mm.
And therefore, you need to invest in people. Put the tax credit, for example, increase tax credit, reduce income tax, for example. That voucher, I mean, we don't need to, people don't really want to be going to restaurants, with all due respect, at this time, because there is still a pandemic out there. We probably want to take that money and buy and do something else, because there might be children who actually who have been deprived of education for the past few months. Additional tuition towards that cost, or help towards that cost, we go a long way. Let us make that choice. Give us that control to make the choice with our money.
Can I just put this question out to people listening and those on the replay? The government has a policy called Eat Out to Help Out, a scheme that offers 50% discount for every diner up to £10 a head from Monday to Wednesday throughout August. Cover food and non-alcoholic drinks only. Applies at participating restaurants, pubs, cafes. Restaurant owners can claim the discount in full from the government via online form. Now, what is happening now, and based on what I'm seeing, is that the government is opening up the country, easing the lockdown step by step. There's a reality that, as the guy in Jamaica said, in Coronation Market, downtown Jamaica, in the ghetto area, he said, listen, social distancing is for rich people. Either I die of COVID or I die of hunger, right? And he said, I'd rather to die of hunger. He said, no, he said he's not going to die of hunger. So the point that I'm seeing now, and David as a doctor is here, is that how long can we keep this? Rishi said, the Chancellor, he said this, if we keep the furlough up to October, we'll be criticized to say we should have kept it up to November. If we keep it up to November, we'll be criticized that we should keep it up to January into 2021. So the question is, and I put this to you, Keisha, where does it stop? I mean, are you waiting for perfection?
No, I completely agree with Rishi's approach to draw down, if you like, for one in a better way of saying, draw down the furlough scheme. Okay.
Yes.
I believe that's the appropriate stance, but you need to put something in place of that.
Yes.
Okay. And given the situation that we're in right now, where there's a lot of people losing their jobs, a lot of people doing their jobs, and when you look at the budget for that, what he's offering are career coaches. Is that what they call them? Or what he's calling them? Coaches. It's similar to career advisors. Now, how is that helpful? With all due respect.
All right.
What these people actually need, they need to be retrained, because the market has changed. Okay, so people who are in retail, then they may need to be retrained to engage in more digital employment, for example. So that investment, that money should be invested into something more directly that will affect those people who are leaving, who are losing their jobs at this moment.
Well, can I just say there, and I'll go on to Keima after, is that the support for young workers is saying this. One, Kickstart scheme, $2 billion fund to pay for 6-month work placement, 16 to 24 years old on universal credit. Payment cover national wage for 25 hours a week, plus national insurance. 1,000 pounds grant per trainee for employees who take on new trainees age 16 to 24. 2,000 grant for employees per apprentice under 25 hired. 1,500 for those over 25. Doubling the number of work coaches, what you just said a while ago, for Job Center Plus. 150 million extra for the Flexible Support Fund, which provides help for job seekers in Great Britain. 101 million to fund studies for 18 to 9-year-olds in England unable to find work. Now, to fund studies, isn't that training? You just said there's no training. 101 million to fund studies for 18 to 9-year-olds in England unable to find work. That's training, Keima. 95 million.
No, I'm saying retraining. So you're looking at those targeted people who are leaving, or who are being currently made redundant, or losing their jobs at this time. What is available for those group of people? How many people at this moment? And the numbers are increasing by the day. People are losing jobs, from John Lewis to, you name them. Last week we listed them. There are a lot of people losing jobs by the day. What is available for them? And this budget have not targeted those people. That's what I'm saying.
Well, Keima, I'm going to let you have the last word on this before we go on, because at the end of the day, unless we can get Mr. Rishi around, we won't get the answer here. But without a doubt, you got a point. And when people are actually saying it, and he said it. He said, listen, we're into a difficult times ahead. He said it because COVID didn't plan. COVID didn't give us warning. Keima.
Yeah, well, I think the Chancellor has to be selective. It's difficult as it is to have answers for every sector, but I think he was focusing specifically on those areas that has most or hard hit by the COVID, and that's where the hospitality industry came in, and that's why he specifically put those vouchers in place. But also he targeted young people, and as I mentioned before, it's really tough for a young person to even get work experience, especially now when they're competing with other people who've got lots of experience and are being made redundant. So how does that, it's a very, very difficult position for young people coming out of school to actually get into the job market, much less for people who are already in the job market and having to retrain. So I think it was very, very much targeting budget to try and capture those people. It's not going to be perfect one. And that's why, of course, he needs the help from businesses. And that's why he's been focusing small businesses, getting investments as well to retain and come up with some creative ideas, create jobs, and also to retain those jobs. He's pretty much aware that after the furlough scheme comes to an end in October, essentially employers will really need to keep on individuals for them to get that bonus by the end of January. So it's a long-term game that he's playing, and he's hoping it'll pay off in the end. Of course, it is a risk in the end. Employers could stay on, keep individual on until January, and in March we might see a subsequent number of people still being made redundant or as a result. So we don't know what could potentially happen, but he's trying. I think this budget is really to try to see how much jobs he could retain, if you want to put it that way.
Maybe then last word on that bit there.
Just agreeing with the last bit. He's obviously come out and said that he can't save every single job, and I don't think any chancellor would be able to do that. And I think this is more about retaining the jobs that are potentially there, giving money to those particular projects, like the cut in the VAT. Potentially is going to save 2.8 million jobs if you believe that from the BBC, etc. So this is movements to try and protect the number of jobs. In terms of the furlough scheme, 9 million people are currently undergoing that scheme. So you've got to save a proportion of those jobs. Can't save all of those jobs, but completely feel for those people who will lose their jobs, unfortunately, because of the coronavirus. And I think what will happen with those people is that a proportion of them will be able to stand on their own feet, find other avenues to particularly pursue, and then we'll get a flavour of those persons who will need the extra support going forward. But I don't think this should be forgotten, and I hope they won't be forgotten, because quite obviously we need people who are able to work and to support themselves, their families, and the economy as well going forward.
Okay. All right. Okay, let's move on swiftly from that one there, because there's a crime bit which is talking about in the UK, crime and immigration. But particularly, I wanted to just raise this point and this different discussion, and it's around Bianca Williams. She received an apology from the Met Police after she and her partner were pulled over in their car in a stop and search. Miss Williams' 3-month-old son was also in the car on Saturday when it was stopped in Maidavale. I've seen in recent days police being chased away from illegal raves in London about 3 or 4 times. People throwing stones at them, and people are saying these police guys are weak. You see it also in the demonstration. They're running. And then you have a situation now whereby they are claiming to do their job and in the process are apologizing. Is it that the police have lost their luster or their sense of respect in the UK at this time? I know the Bianca Williams case is there, but it is putting a daunting experience on the police.
Well, I think for the policing, it's very important that we have confidence in police. It's very important for individuals and for our own safety as well, that we feel comfortable that when we call the police that they will come. And people have a right, if there's illegal raves, to call the police, and the police will come and not be threatened in any way by bottles and having to run away. I mean, that is not, it seems a very much senseless thing to do when they're actually, their main job is really to protect us and to keep us safe. I don't think, of course, the police get it right all the time. And I think, of course, there's internal areas that they could look at in terms of addressing some of the inequalities within the police force and how they treat a lot of people as well. That's why you hear the issue around the Bianca and people not certain whether they've addressed the issue adequately, and that's why it's been addressed, forwarded to the Independent Police Commission to review. But I think at the end, ultimately, we need to have full confidence in the police, and the police need to believe that the public support them as well, because it's actually in our interest that they do that. So I'm all for trying to see as much as we can do to work with the police on that.
David, I don't know if you had followed that story regarding Bianca, the athlete, and the fact that the police sort of abused her to a certain extent. You know, sound gone. Okay, guys, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
David, can you hear me? Okay, David, sound is going to log back in. Keima, Keisha, if you can sort of elaborate on what's your take on that recent issue there.
Okay, so I've read on Bianca and her story, and I feel that from the outset, the role of the police force is to protect the peace, to protect people, or to ensure that we are safe and we are kept safe.
Yeah.
But recently, and in recent years, the Met Police have been under scrutiny because there are a number of complaints that has been raised against how they conduct certain matters relating to, for example, discrimination or racial police brutality, etc. And so what Bianca did, I suppose, is just shining a light to what a lot of people have been talking about throughout the years, which is police have been profiling people, stopping and searching Black people in particular. There's a higher number of Black people being stopped and searched in this country than any other race, and therefore there must be some questions to be asked.
Yes.
Regarding how the police treat Black people within this country why are they being stopped and searched, on what basis are they being stopped and searched? Why are they a suspect? Are they even a suspect of a particular crime? The profiling of Black people within this country, and that is what we need to be looking at. So yes, I completely agree that the police have a responsibility to protect its people, but police have to be held accountable when they go wrong as well. And I'm glad that there is an investigation. I believe there's an investigation that is going on, or at least Bianca is, they've decided to forward it to the Complaints Commission for review. And there are a number of complaints that's been taken to the complaints review relating to similar incidences. So this is not an isolated incident. I do not feel. I believe that this is actually numerous times within this country, and it has to be looked at. So yes, I agree that the only difference to my mind, is that it's actually raising a spotlight as to what's actually been happening in this country, and people are now speaking about it.
David.
Yes, so I think that with regards to the police, obviously they're a public service, much like nurses, doctors. We are afforded protection to a degree, manner, of fashion. So we're there to serve and protect. Now, I think there has to be a two-way discussion. There's got to be a discussion to be had in regards to how police officers are viewed, and the fact that they are there to protect and serve. And I think that should be assumed firstly. Okay, so when you have police being chased away or hounded or etc., that should not be an acceptable standard for any society, especially when you have police first and foremost there to protect us. And in the same breath, any particular instances that occur within the police force that are in regards to race, sex, harassment, etc., bullying, all of that needs to be investigated as well. With this particular case, I can't really comment any more than the experiences that have really been shared already, but I do think it does show how quickly things can escalate in regards to any form of communication, especially when that communication isn't something that is to be expected. So, for example, I wouldn't expect to be harassed by a patient that comes into the hospital because they've come into the hospital for treatment.
Yes.
But in the street, when you've got somebody who's stopping you for something that you may well feel is not to be expected or warranted because you feel it's because of the color of your skin or otherwise, I think I can see how that confrontation can occur. But I think there's got to be a degree of respect on both sides here, a degree of respect from the police officers who are trying to do their job, and a degree of respect with regards to the society who need to be protected by the police force. And I'm not saying that didn't happen in this particular example, but what I am saying is that I think that is something that you can see. If there is that degree of respect between both parties, both bodies, then you're less likely to have the issues and concerns that we have found taking place from time dot. And I speak specifically to the example of George Floyd. If there was respect for George Floyd, he wouldn't have ended up in the position that he ended up in on the floor with a knee on his neck. It's as simple as that.
And what I want to do is a close-off call. Where time is upon us now. This actually flows straight into Michael Holden. Michael Holden, who recently had made some statements regarding racism in the UK. I'm sure he may be thinking to himself that, hey, I came here actually to do cricket, but they got me to do something, whereby he's saying some serious issue, really touching. And there's a second video which is going around. So I just want to play this video just briefly. I'm just going to hide you guys for a moment while I just play this video just briefly here for a second. And if I can find it, yeah, there it goes.
Did you feel?
How did you feel
down the barrel of the
speaking
camera
down the barrel of
about
the
this
camera?
subject?
Well, I obviously didn't get as emotional as Ebony because, as I said in that video, I didn't really experience a great deal of that as a young man growing up in Jamaica, perhaps because I wasn't in that society or mixing with people that would have shown me that racism. But what I want to expand on, though, Wardy, is what I said about education. Education is important unless we just want to continue living the life that we are living and continue just having demonstrations every now and again and a few people saying a few things. And when I say education, I mean going back in history. What people need to understand is that this thing stems from a long time ago, hundreds of years ago. The dehumanization of the black race is where it started. And people will tell you, oh, that's a long time ago, get over it. No, you don't get over things like that. And the society has not gotten over something like that. I'll skip all the gap between those long years ago and make one point and then go backward. That lady in the Central Park in New York, Amy Cooper, I think is her name. If she did not have in her DNA the thought process that she was white, this man is black, if I call a police officer, 9 times out of 10 he's going to be white, I'm going to be considered right immediately. The black guy will have to prove that he's not guilty, and by the time he proves that he's not guilty, he might be dead. She had that in her mind from day one. That is why she said and did what she did. How do you get rid of that in the society? By educating both sides, black and white. I hear people talking about brainwashing. I didn't quite understand as a young man what brainwashing meant. I now understand what brainwashing meant, what it means. We have been brainwashed, and not just black people. White people have been brainwashed in different ways. I go back many years. Think about religion. You and I are supposed to be Christians. I'm not really a very holy person, not a very religious person, but that's what we were taught. Look at Jesus Christ, the image that they give you of Jesus Christ. Pale skin, blonde hair, blue eyes. Where Jesus came from, who in that part of the world looks that way? But again, that's the brainwashing to show you this is what perfection is. This is what the image of perfection is. If you look at any players of those days, Judas, who betrayed Jesus, he's a black man. Again, brainwashing people into think, oh, he's a black man. He's the bad man. Go through history, Wardy. These lights that are shining on us. You can tell me who invented the light bulb, right? Thomas Edison, right? Everybody knows Thomas Edison invented the light bulb. Thomas Edison invented a light bulb with a paper filament. It burnt out in no time at all. Can you tell me who invented the filament that makes these lights shine throughout? Nobody knows, because he's a black man. It was not taught in schools. Lewis Howard Latimer invented the carbon filament to allow lights to continue to shine. Who knows that?
Okay.
Should be taught.
Okay. I just want to just pull it up from there now. Let me see if I can just get David back in. 1, 2, 3. You all can hear me, yeah?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I want to just bring that story in for a second. What's your thoughts about Michael Holding and some of the key points that he was actually explaining?
So, I mean, for me, first of all, I will start by saying that Michael Holding accelerated in my viewpoint. You know, he was and still is viewed as one of the greats in West Indies cricket, and for his playing ability. And then after that, obviously, he's been commentating for a while now. And it's always great to hear him commentating, not just on the West Indies, but on cricket as a whole.
Yeah.
I think on this particular issue as a platform, it was to be unexpected. It was a rain day. It always rains in England when cricket's on. And we don't have any topic of discussion in regards to race or otherwise. But this was really a shining moment, I think, in regards to the plight of say black history and how it's undertaught and the plight of black people as a whole, with examples, with real examples that people could actually look to. I think also what I quite liked about this is that the people he was speaking to, cricket's always been viewed as that gentleman's sport, and it is a gentleman's sport. It's a great sport to watch and review. And I think that his thoughts on it were quite wholly accepted. I'm not going to say everybody accepted, but I'll say wholly accepted across the viewpoint. And he had a lot of plaudits for his viewpoints. And I think it's because of the people he was speaking to who would be interested in cricket. I think on other platforms like football, for example, that may well attract a different type of crowd. And I think if I'm not going to definitely say, but if it was spoken on a different platform, I don't think he would have had the same kind of plaudits. So I do have to applaud him for that. The one thing I will say, and this may sound quite negative, is in regards to sport as a platform, I think people use sport as a form of getting away from life's ills.
Yes.
And so, people who were watching the sport who weren't expecting that might well have felt a little bit away, but at the same time, I liked it. I think if it was a repetition, if there was a repetition to it, we weren't able to break away from this particular topic through sport, then I think it's going to devalue the message to an extent. But at the same time, this particular message was a positive one. It had really good value. And I think I can only applaud him for raising those concerns. And I think that most of the people who have commented on it, 5 million views in excess on YouTube, that just shows you that people are in tune with what he had to say. And I applaud him highly, Michael Holding.
And Keisha, what's your views towards that? What he was saying?
Well, I think David summed it up very not well. Absolutely, eloquently, Mr. Holland's speech was eloquently spoken. He's touched on so many different aspects of some of the struggles a lot of Black people in this country in particular, and even all over the world are facing. And one of the key points that he raised is, and again we touched on at the last time we met, is around the lack of education. People need to be educated about the impact or how much racism, discrimination, unconscious bias, all that affect Black people. and it's important for us as a community. And when I'm saying community now, I'm referring to not just the Black community, but the whole society. This is the time. We had the pandemic, we have the Black Lives Matter movement. We're here now. What are we going to do with all this information? Because clearly, Mr. Holden used his platform to say, "Listen, you could hear from his throat, in his voice, he's tired.
Yes.
This is a person who is tired and has seen a lot, and he's almost crying out to people to say, listen, this is a time to say, let us do something about this. People in this country, Black people, for example, they are hurting. And the only how we can progress, the only how we can be a better community, a better nation, is if we begin to work together and redress some of the ills within the society. And some of these ills, and we have to be honest with ourselves, it's perpetrated to a number of aspects within or institution within the society. We touched on, the police force. We didn't get a chance to talk about the immigration system. Yeah. So this is what he's saying. Listen, we need to stop for a moment and review and examine our country as a people. When you look at some of the statements or some of the responses, our commentary I see on social media during the social life movement, the Black Lives Movement, and even during this commentary holding, you see some of the racism that's actually being spurted out
naturally,
and you realize this still exists in 2020.
Well, one of the things,
and he's tired. This young man he's in his 60s, and he's saying, listen, he's basically saying he's seen a lot. He's seen a lot, and it's time for people, white people, Black people, need to just get together and do something about it. And he said education, and I agree completely. Education is the way, the only way we could redress this. Absolutely.
It's interesting what he said also. He talks about education, and that was very poignant, where he mentioned that a lot of people have been brainwashed. He said, brainwashed. So he's actually, it's like saying, even white people, they're brainwashed. And he talks about the Jesus factor, which really shuts down that major argument going around about is Jesus white? Because it's obvious that Jesus is not white if one actually used some logical deduction to say that at that point, there's no blue-eyed Jesus going to come from. No, there's no blonde-haired guy who's going to come from that area. So he actually breaks it down, and then he talks about the guy who did the filament. Information which is not known. I actually didn't know that. I don't know about you guys. I put my hand up. The guy who made the filament, also in the for the light bulb. So, and he spoke about the fact that this won't happen maybe in his lifetime, but he hoped it will happen in his grandson's lifetime, and therefore he expressed the point that the education is got to be known, and that is why I believe that there's a clear need for education to show the impact. And therefore, and he summed it up by saying, the conqueror always writes about history.
Of course. So do you think the conqueror is now going to say, let us review the educational system?
I don't put that's not in the hands of the conqueror. That's in the hands of us now. Keisha, sorry, Keima.
Well, for me, I find it to be very apt that it's a cricketer who spoke so eloquently on a topic that's been we've been trying to talk about for the last couple of weeks, Black Lives Matter. And you've heard a lot of pushback, and particularly some of the right-wing media who actually go as far as saying the Black Lives Matter movement is part of a Marxist group. But I think he actually spoke so eloquently and so clearly, break it down for individuals to fully understand that this is not a simple matter. It's very, very complex to comprehend. And the fact that this is a cricketer, this is a West Indian cricketer. We all know where how cricket got to the Caribbean. It was taken there by the Englishman, right? So then we've got this vision where the Englishman, a cricketer, this cricketer now is actually talking to us and saying, look, this is where the level of inequality and discrimination is happening because of your skin. And where a lot of times we're trying to deny, particularly in the media, that it's actually happened, because I don't know if people sometimes refuse to admit that there is actually discrimination, or they just don't want to admit there is discrimination. But there's some sort of deliberate attempt in some ways to cover up that it does exist. And he's absolutely right. In order for us to be able to tackle any form of inequality particularly around race, we have to be honest with ourselves. We have to look at what's being taught. You're taught in history that to be pure, you've got to be white, and if you are dark skinned, then it somehow equates to evil. And these are narratives that's been built into our psyche, and so it's very difficult to deconstruct if we don't go back in history, look at some of these texts and some of the things that we are taught and not taught as well, because as you said, Silbo, some of these things that we need to know are all omitted. And so it does fuel some of the concepts where you see in some elements of the workplaces or in some elements of society, you see there is an automatic assumption if a white person walk into a room, that person must be a manager. But if a black person walks into a room, that person is a cleaner. So there's a thought that needs to be looked at, and some of the deconstructions need to happen. And I think he's done it so eloquently. And I think people need to look at that and sort of go back in history and read up and sort of understand history for themselves.
So are you saying that there need to be this national conversation?
Yes, I do. I don't think
I hate hearing that thing about national conversation.
But I think it's true. And I think.
Listen, I agree. I agree with Stephanie Alexander, bro. White people don't need this lecture. We need reparation to start. No, I do.
But then we can't get to the reparations debate until white people are honest about our history, not select part that they like. It has to be a brutal discussion, and in order for us to have that brutal, when we do have that brutal discussion, then we could actually talk about compensation and reparations. But the fact is, we don't even want to come around the table to talk about racism. You and I both know in the workplace, it's easier to talk about discrimination against women in the workplace, but not about black and ethnic minorities. It's so difficult to even have or raise that conversation. So we have, as he said, Holden said, we have a far way to go before we could actually begin to have any, but hopefully we could have some progress. But yeah.
But before I go, if I read what Stephanie says here, if I was white, I would be furious, as what David sort of alluded to a point. They came not to listen to that. I'd be furious. Wouldn't want to be bothered with this black and white constant racial issue, especially BLM attacking white culture and that. I think it's coming from a position of saying, listen, man, get the money, get the economics, and just get going.
I think from the first statement, though, what I would say, I did say, on a sports platform, if it can be viewed differently, because you've tuned in to try and get away from anything that's happening in the real world and let your mind slide. If you're going to watch a movie, for example, you don't expect to have any of the real life events to occur. You're just going there to lose your mind in a different way. But at the same time, I think that there's got to be, rather than being defensive, we've got to be open. And I think if this was something that was put on Sky Sports every single day for the next year, I would probably, I'm not saying the year has to be the year, but my point is, I think that would probably open the idea to people being quite offended by it. But this was a select time. It was Michael Holden asked the question personally about it, and gave a measured response with great examples as to how he perceives things. And so I don't particularly have any concerns with it.
Okay, good. So I'm kudos to Michael Holden. I do remember meeting him once or maybe twice at his petrol station in New Kingston. That's in Jamaica. Homeboy, you know what I mean? So what can I say? I think that petrol station maybe is closed now. Maybe he didn't know that he was coming to the UK to do this. You see, I believe in life, there's always an opportune time or whereby you're positioned for a moment like now. And I believe this is a moment now whereby we've got to take the bull by the horn and run with it. Guys, listen. After session in Instagram, for those who want to do that, people on Instagram, we're going to come over there and to see who wants to actually have a discussion over there where we can do a brief overview. We call it the after party, but it's not the after party really. It's more like after show chat. I think Keima or Keisha, David might have to go to his bed or he's get beaten.
Yeah, I'm not going to get up. I don't want to show you the bruises, and I'm teasing. Obviously. I couldn't say that on live. Anyway.
Yeah. But any last word on what we expect for next week, and what's your forecast? What's your prognosis? What's your prophetic utterance? what next week will be?
Well, I hope
She knows
that.
Okay.
Well, I can only pray that Rishi do an improvement on this budget. I don't know if it's going to be next week though. No, he has. I think he needs to give us better sweetness. I mean, I'm talking about increase in the tax credit. I think it's 80 something pounds a week or a month. I can't even remember. We could do a little bit more than that at this time. Reduction in income tax. Surprise us, Rishi. We need something that goes directly into our pockets. So yes, we're giving him another chance, and I'm hoping next week he can deliver.
I'm definitely gonna try to make sure he gets this video.
I know he's your mate. So do what you got to do.
Keima, your last word.
Well, I suppose we'll see more initiatives coming out from the government, more guidelines for people to get back to work, and particularly those sectors. We'll see more of gyms and hairdressers being open now, so that's pretty good. But we'll see more of that. I'm hoping. Yeah.
Yes. And David, in closing.
So you heard from me about my BAME reference last week. This week, I'm so happy that my thunder has been stolen by Michael Holding, because he obviously, education is key. If you remember back to education.
Yes.
I think the thing I alluded to earlier though was respect. I think if we can put respect on all our names,
yes.
and sing more about respect, we can move forward as well as people. And I think respect is highly undervalued,
Yes.
and I think that's something that we should aspire for. I don't have a acronym for it yet, but I will come up with something in due course for respect. And watch out for the BAME t-shirt coming soon.
And yeah, well, actually, yeah, because
and mug.
A mug. Oh, of course, yeah, the mug. Yeah.
And what it is black and mentally
effective,
black and mentally effective, which is the right word.
Copyrighted by SYLBOURNE TV.
Yes. What can I say? And I want to just somebody asked me to say something. There's a big event which is happening tomorrow. It's by Victoria. It's I want to see if I can find the this bit here, because I was asked to see if I can say anything about this. Let me see if I can find it. Here we go. It's an event which is tomorrow, Friday the 10th, 6 p.m. Jamaica We Love Land Series virtual forum, Friday the 10th of July, 6 p.m. Who, when, where can I? Victoria Mutual and with Corey Hyde, and this is talking about how you can buy properties in Jamaica. And
nice.
Those who are in Jamaica, talking about the NHT, National Housing Trust. Learn how to start saving your home in Jamaica by joining our conversation this Friday at 6 p.m. British time. You're invited to Jamaica Land We Love property question and answer session, diaspora conversation with the National Housing Trust and series partners Victoria Mutual and Moreland Development, all answering your questions about home ownership in Jamaica. Friday the 10th of July, 6 p.m. GB, 7 p.m. and all those sort of things. Different presenters will be Mr. Dwayne Burbick, Corporate and Public Affairs Manager, National Housing Trust, Mr. Leighton Smith, UK Chief Representative Officer, Head of Diaspora Affairs, Victoria Mutual, Mr. Jason Baker, Sales and Marketing Manager, Moreland Development, hosted by Corey Hyde. And so therefore that is happening tomorrow at 6 o'clock. And as well, one of the key thing is that after that, which is not really a part of it, I'm having a gentleman called Pastor Clement. He works a lot with young people, and I'm trying to keep the presence on young people, youth. So therefore, the connections, youth connections with Pastor Clement, young guy, but doing a lot of work with young people and young men. So tomorrow night at 9 o'clock, he's gonna come on, and make sure also on Saturday, I'm back with the Dream Team, men only. Duh. Unless Keima or Keisha want to hijack it. Coach Christian and David, where we're going to talk about the 21-day challenge which we started during lockdown, and to see what happened during the course of that time, if we followed it up, have I kept walking, Did David keep running? And did Chris stop eating sweets? And we may have one or two persons coming in to say what they've learned through the period of lockdown. And Coach Chris Brown is going to lead on that. So that is Saturday. We don't know what time yet. We might go in the day if the sun is hot and everything like that. Or maybe on the beach as well. Social distance applies. All right.
But we're here next week, Thursday.
You're here next. Oh no, well, but Rishi. Well, unless Rishi don't block you or something like that, you know what I mean? maybe he takes away your 5G or your 3G. No, yes, we'll be here next week as well. The same time at 9 o'clock with different topics as well, because things just keep flowing. So we just want to keep this presence as well. All right, guys. And for those who are on Instagram, we're going to jump over Instagram for a few minutes as well, which normally lasts about 30 minutes or so. So thank you very much, guys, and see you around next time. Go to your bed, sleep. Don't let the bed bugs bite. God bless you. And for all those on the persons who commented, thank you so much for that, Stephanie. Let's hear what Stephanie said. Like, education won't solve racial problem. Races are always competing to outdo one another. Our problem as Black people is we are always, and I can't get the rest up there, we're always trying to socially integrate. We need to compete and secure ourselves. Okay? All ideas content, all views content, and with much respect, we leave it there. And let's Stephanie.
Pick that up over.
I'm sorry?
We can probably pick this up at the over at the on Instagram.
I'll tell you a question that somebody asked earlier today. They said, where is the government getting all this money?
Let's talk about that on Instagram. Let's go.
And the person put it to me and said, I need to find out, because they keep saying they have no money. Where are they getting all this money? Where's that tree? They said they want to find that tree so they can also get some money there. So that's something there. And if anybody know the answer, please. Maybe we can get Rishi to actually answer the question. Get Rishi on.
Get your mate. Get your mate.
All right, guys. Have a good night, yeah? Thank you very much.
Good night.
Peace out. Bye-bye.
Bye.